I began working with Sheejith Krishna in 2009 in a production of Just As Repertory, which belongs to my mother. She was the director of a play and we choreographed some dance sequences. That's how I first met her. But soon Sheejith, Anjana Anand, who's also a core member of Sahridaya, and I became friends. We found that we had a lot in common, including Karakshetra. And we started working together and we formed Sahridaya officially in, I think the year was 2011. Ever since, I think it's felt wonderful to have a group of people my age, including Sheejith, Anjana, Manjari, Jyotishmati, with whom I feel that I'm able to think about how we can all, as a generation, take culture forward, take the Indian classical arts forward so that they can speak to people in the present, have relevance in the world we live in.
What about Pravaha? What is it like working with him in general and in particular for this production?
Pravaha has been wonderful for me. This was my year of firsts in a lot of ways. I started doing work in theatre and in music and dance independently, and one of the contributions I made to Pravaha was along these lines. I composed a bit of music, which was a huge achievement for me because I've never done that before. Working with Sheejith on the whole is a joy for me. I feel like we complement each other. The word Pravaha means flow in Sanskrit. Pravaha in Hindi also means the same thing. The idea of the production is that water, the journey of water, is also the journey of the creative imagination set free. So we connect the material and the tangible, the journey of water on earth from the beginning of time, to something that's transcendental, or the flight of the imagination. So when you dam the imagination, when you make blocks, the imagination doesn't work as well as it could. In the same way, if you dam the rivers, the world suffers for it. So in some sense, we choose to explore this concept and theme through a series of different kinds of pieces in Pravaha. The main piece is, of course, dedicated to Pravaha, but even there, the emphasis is on the fact that if a monarch or a ruler or a a head of state doesn't think about the welfare of the people in conjunction with the welfare of the planet, we won't survive. So the message is that the common good is important. One of the great joys of scripting Pravaha for me is working across idioms. When Sheejith and I sit down and talk about what needs to go into a script, I sort of flesh what he says with my words. And then when we worked with lyrics and music, he fleshed that same thought process and the conceptualization through his choreography. So I love that give and take that we have, and I hope we can do more of that in the future. But in particular, the challenge here with Pravaha is how do you tell the story of the universe in the space of 1.5 to 2 hours? It's a pretty huge challenge. How do you tell the story of water from the first millennia of rain, after the Big Bang, after the whole earth was a mass of fire? How do you tell that story and then bring it down to the present? How do you show the intersection of history, mythology, and contemporary experience in the space of 1.5 hours? So the conversations were about how to build those bridges through the narrations, through the script, between the different discrete pieces, and that was an exciting process. Also, we were dealing with some pieces that already existed and were already choreographed, and some pieces that were being composed and choreographed for the production. So how did we build bridges? That was exciting, and when you watch the production, you can judge for yourselves how well we did that. Other than that, I would say that I enjoy working with an artist who thinks of a greater whole, who thinks about the fate of the planet and the future of humanity and works in that direction. So all the material we choose to script and dance and compose is material that brings us towards that bigger picture and that greater end. So it's wonderful that we don't even have to talk about these things, perhaps because we all grew up in the Kalakshitra ethos and the Theosophical Society ethos. We don't have to talk about the fact that art should respond to a higher goal, but it's not something I take for granted. Not all artists are. So I'm lucky in that capacity to work with some people. I invite you all to come and see for yourselves how elastic the mediums of Bharatanatyam and Carnatic music are, because even as we explore the classical, we also have explored different contemporary forms of dance and music. In particular, you'd be surprised to know that the blues, which is an American tradition, has influenced the music in Pravaha, as has singer-songwriter traditions from Europe and the Americas. We've tried to incorporate these without diluting the classicism of the production as a whole. In fact, what we're trying to say is that the story of water is a universal story and it's a cross-cultural story. So the music and the dance too reflect this cross-cultural give and take between all the different cultures of the world. So you should come and experience this for yourselves, because the classical arts can be relevant to all audiences. We don't believe as a India Foundation that we should restrict ourselves to audiences in India or audiences for the Indian classical arts. We'd like to see more and more people from different cultures in our productions, watching our productions, and so we try to create those kinds of productions, to create a love for our arts.
Thank you. We're looking forward to seeing the production in its final form.